fell off. Northeastern players, I guess, just prefer to play their blue-based control decks.
Yeah.
I saw a lot, and pretty much double the number of blue-white-red that I would anticipate. A lot of Esper, even a decent amount of Grixis. Joe Larson was not the only one. There was at least one other one near the top tables.
Okay.
There's actually around 5 side feature, not on camera, where Joel was playing another Grixis.
That's pretty funny.
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so Anthony Lowry, he's still left. He's playing Joe Nigri, like you said. He recently came second at a PTQ.
Yeah.
And also he has some success in the Star City circuit.
Yep, he's a Magic writer, and he's the creator of the American Auras deck that you see popping up every once in a while. If you see a Madcap Skills on a Geist of St. Traft, you can thank Anthony Lowry. Nick Heleen on the right is a Boston native and not quite as storied of a career as Mr. Lowry.
Sure, but he's definitely hitting the circuits, and this is definitely a great way to actually make it to the level you want to be at, or a lot of the competitive players want to be at.
Absolutely.
They want to go to the Somerset for the Invitational. This is one of the last chances to qualify for the Somerset Invitational.
Yep. And I think that Anthony's already qualified, but even if he wasn't, this would be he still wants this feather in his
for
cap.
sure, yeah, definitely.
He's a very hungry player. If you follow him on Twitter or on Facebook, you know that he is one of the hungriest for results kind of players. After that PTQ loss
in the finals,
he was just devastated.
Okay.
Yeah, he's an up and coming player, and he's very passionate about his results, and so wish him all the best here as he starts off with Arbor Elf.
Yeah, looks like he won the die roll.
Yes,
yeah.
Good start, especially against
sure.
Hexproof. Nick Heleen, also all the luck to him. I don't want to be too one-sided here.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. And you know what's interesting with Ban Hexproof? Lots of times it doesn't matter how good the opponent's draw is. Anthony Lowry's draw could be on a scale of 1 to 10. It could be a 4, it could be a 5, it could be a 6. It's not going to play that much of relevance. It's really going to come down to, is Nick's draw, is it a 9, is it a 10?
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's the key thing with Ban Hexproof. And I think that's lots of times why people don't want to play Ban Hexproof is because they think it's really reliant on their own draw.
Yeah, Anthony Lowry is going to play a turn 2 Borderland Ranger. That's going to go get him a mountain. Nick Heleen is going to play a turn 2 3-drop as well.
Think it's going to be Lockstone Smiter?
Well, Anthony better hope so, considering his deck is not particularly well suited to playing against a turn 2 Geist.
Yeah, Geist with anything on it. Geist with Spectral Flight could just end the game so quick, and Anthony won't have many answers for it, especially game 1. After board, he could bring in Abrupt Decays, which will definitely help.
Yes.
He will bring in the Golgari Charm, which will definitely help. But for the most part, game 1, he's kind of weak to Ban Hexproof.
But Anthony Lowry, of course, has Mizium Mortars, much better at answering a Loxodon Smiter, which it does. In for 3 damage with his Elf and Human, and passing the turn.
Yeah. All right, so do you think Nick is going to just suit up this Avacyn's Pilgrim, or it's not worth it?
No, he probably should. I mean, at this point, you don't have any other gas. You just have to suit up your Avacyn's Pilgrim. And that's what he does. We have Armadillo Cloak 2.0, Unflinching Courage. That Pilgrim gets himself a little Liquid Courage and heads into the red zone.
Looks like Anthony draws a Burning Tree Emissary. Not something you really want to draw on turn 4 or turn 5. You really want it on turn 2. You want your explosive draw.
Yep.
But, I mean, it's still a 2-2. It's not the worst thing in the world. We'll see what he does with it.
Fortunately for Nick, does not appear as if Anthony has a way to kill that Arbor or that Avacyn's Pilgrim. Yep. So he's going to be able to suit up the other aura in his hand. However, he does have Thundermaw Hellkite, which is a very large dragon that is going to put a big hamper in Nick's plans.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a really close race here, and we'll see what Anthony decides to do. Now that Burning Tree Emissary cannot attack, although he is picking up like it could attack, so we'll make sure.
Yeah, we'll figure that one out.
If it
that
comes
Burning
to
Tree Emissary does not have haste.
Yeah, all right.
There we go.
Everyone's on top of it this time. They're like, no.
Everybody's got it. Just 7, dropping Nick to 9.
Yeah. Now, do you think that alters Anthony's math? Do you think maybe he doesn't want it, like he had it in his head that he's going to attack with everything, and now it's like, oh, I missed out on these 2 points, or no?
I don't think so.
No?
I think that Anthony is. You see the word aggro next to his deck name. I think that he's just going to swing with everything that the judge will let him swing with.
Okay, that's definitely
that the rules will let him swing with, I should say. And so he was a little overambitious there. But Nick is still going to stay on his game plan of suiting up the Avacyn's Pilgrim and that is exactly what's going to happen here.
So that's going to be a +5 life for Nick. Anthony's going to drop down to 10. Nick will go to 14. Do you like playing the Spectral Flight there, or would you rather kind of maximize your mana and play the second?
I like the Spectral Flight there. You got to keep attacking. Attacking for the extra, gaining the extra 5 life rather than trying to put a 7/7 into play.
Sure,
is much more important in my opinion.
My thought process was, instead of Spectral Flight, maybe you just do the second unflinching courage.
Sure,
it's an option.
I think it's an option. I think that the Armadillo Cloak effect doesn't stack on unflinching.
Yeah, exactly.
Courage. So just giving it +2/+2 for 3 mana is much worse than just giving it +2/+2 and flying for 2 mana.
Sure.
I think that that the value of keeping the unflinching courage, especially if you draw another hexproof creature, is much more valuable.
So I think Nick will go 5, 7, 9. I think Nick's going to take this game. I think he's going to go Spectral Flight, unflinching courage, go to 13 if my math's correct, and then Lowry could only come back for 12.
Well, first of all,
okay.
I think that well, first of all, you're right. He's going to play both of these auras on this Avacyn's Pilgrim. This is going to be one of the largest Avacyn's Pilgrims in the history of Standard.
Yeah, definitely,
but Anthony does have a chance at a top deck here, so he'll be able to. He's going to need to be able to do it. Now that there are 2 Spectral Flights and 2 unflinching courages, to drop Anthony down to 1, right?
Yeah, this is a crazy game.
This is a pretty insane game.
All right, Anthony with a lot of draws. Falcon Wrath, maybe?
Anthony has a ton of draws here.
He's counting. It's 1 short. Oh, Falcon Wrath, I called it. That's sick.
And that is enough.
Wow, all right.
Well, there you go. Anthony Lowry's taking a quick game 1.
Yeah.
He had many draws there, though. He could have had Gorklan Rampager, Flinthoof Boar, Falcon Wrath Aristocrat, or another one of his 4 Thundermaw Hellkites to be able to get there. He does not have main deck Hell Riders.
Okay.
But he does have them in the sideboard.
Sure.
Speaking of the sideboards, you have Anthony's over there. Why don't you tell us what you think he's going to bring in this matchup?
I think Golgari Charm is definitely something that he wants here. He wants to just stop all the enchant creatures. He wants to stop all the auras. Another thing that he's going to want to bring in is Abrupt Decay. And also, I believe, Vraska, just again, to use it kind of as a disenchant type effect.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that the things like Rurik Thar and Zealous Conscripts are going to be way too slow. It's possible he could bring in this Thragtusk. He has 1 Thragtusk in his sideboard to be able to just prevent one of the attacks as a pseudo fog.
Okay.
Not ideal. It depends on what he wants to take out, really.
Okay.
Domri Raid, not great in this matchup.
Yeah.
Missio Mortars was as good as it can be.
It was
that game.
Yeah, took out Loxodon Smiter.
Taking out the Loxodon Smiter, so I don't know how good that card's going to be going forward. So he's got a couple cards to be able to take out if he wants to thin down.
Yeah, I think trimming is something that he'll definitely do, but I agree with you for the most part of the cards that he should be siding out just to make his deck more streamlined and give his deck more answers.
Yeah. Moving over to Nick's sideboard over here, I think that most people are used to the sideboard cards that you see out of Bant Hexproof, but we'll go over them just the same. Celestia Charm, certainly a possibility against any Gorklan Rampager deck.
Yep. He also saw Thundermaw Hellkite.
He also saw Thundermaw Hellkite that game. Very difficult card for most decks to deal with, especially Bant Hexproof. Dispel, probably not coming in. Rest in peace, not for this matchup. Fog, certainly an option here. Be able to, if the goal is to race, a Fog is pretty much gaining 10 every time.
It really is.
Feeling of Dread is almost moment's piece in this matchup, being able to flash back and prevent a whole ton of damage. Strangleroot Geist is an interesting one to me.
It is.
Because it will speed up the clock in some situations and is also okay at playing defense. I think I'd rather have Strangleroot Geist than something like the one of Fencing Ace he has in the main deck.
That's definitely true. What do you think about Strangleroot Geist compared to Loxodon Smiter? What do you like more there? Do you like the bigger body, or do you like the creature that's harder to kill?
Against Anthony's deck, I tend to like the Loxodon Smiter better because it can stand tall in front of things like Flinthoof Boar.
Okay, it could trade with a Gorklan Rampager.
He can trade with, yeah, exactly, and he probably assumes correctly that Boros Reckoner is not in Anthony's deck, but who knows how greedy your opponent's going to be with the with your mana situation. So Anthony could possibly have that, any number of 3/3s that are still good in this format. Mostly Flint Hoof Boar, I think, is the concern.
Okay.
And so I would rather have the elephant than the Geist.
Sure. That's definitely fair. And you see both players, pretty much just finishing up sideboarding. Anthony's just checking, hey, do I have 15 cards? Want to make everything is correct. Maybe a last minute change, maybe a split sleeve. You never know what's going on there. But yeah, Nick's going to be on the play this game. And I think Ban Hexproof kind of likes to see a matchup like this, especially after board, like you said, with Feeling of Dread and with Fog.
Oh, absolutely. I would, if I'm in a racing matchup, if I'm up against a deck like Jund aggro, red-green aggro, I want to be on the Ban Hexproof side.
Sure.
Because I have Unflinching Courage in my deck.
Okay.
And I've also got creatures that can't be targeted.
Yeah.
So if it comes to racing, I want to be in the one that's built to race.
Okay.
Not necessarily the Jund. I mean, Jund aggro is definitely built to race, but there are many more answers to the various types of problems.
Yep. And I think Anthony knows this matchup isn't the best for him because of all those reasons that you just gave.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that, a lot of people complain about Ban Hexproof just as an archetype.
Okay.
The point has been brought up that if it's an archetype named after a mechanic, it's typically a problem. Storm, Hexproof, Affinity.
Yeah.
These are problem abilities. But Ban Hexproof fits a very important part of the metagame, which is there isn't really a combo deck in Standard. And Ban Hexproof is pretty much the closest thing to a pure combo deck. That you mulligans poorly, you don't sideboard very many cards, you want to keep the core of the deck, you're not really answering much of your opponent's stuff. It fits an important role in the metagame. Nobody goes into a tournament saying, man, I hope I play Ban Hexproof every round.
Yeah.
But it's certainly an interesting deck, and it's just a different set of problems.
Definitely.
That new Standard has to deal with.
Yeah, and Ban Hexproof really came about at Grand Prix Atlantic City, very early this year, and not many people kind of gave it a lot of credit. And as you saw, the finals was Ban Hexproof versus Ban Hexproof.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that it definitely speaks to the viability of a new deck when two copies of the same deck face off in the finals of a major event.
Yeah, it was 1,700 players or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it was really big. And the thing is that Ban Hexproof, although it does mulligan often, it also mulligans fairly well.
Yeah, actually you're right. I was saying that many combo decks don't mulligan very well. Ban Hexproof actually does.
It does. Yeah, I definitely agree with you with Storm.
Yeah.
Lots of times you want all your resources. You need your rituals, you need your card draw. But here,
Ban Hexproof really needs one guy and usually one enchantment. Like, you can win the game off of land, Invisible Stalker, Unflinching Courage as your opener, and that's the nuts.
Okay.
Or you can start with like land, Avacyn's Pilgrim, Geist, and hope to draw one of your 20 or 16 auras.
Sure.
And you're in perfectly good shape. So it's actually a deck that mulligans somewhat well.
Yeah, so no turn one play for Nick, just a breeding pool. Maybe he has a draw with a Voice of Resurgence, which is definitely good if he's thinking about, will this turn into an attrition battle? He doesn't want it to, but it might, and if it does, Voice of Resurgence is definitely on top of his list for that.
Looks to me like he has Geist and double Unflinching Courage.
Wow, well that's good.
So Nick is going to play a second land tapped,
Yep.
and not play anything, and Anthony's now thinking, okay, my opponent definitely has one Geist, probably has two, and probably has two auras, because Nick snap kept.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, if you have Geist with any aura, especially if it's Unflinching Courage, you're never going to mulligan that, as long as you have the lands to cast your spells.
So Anthony should know the type of game that he's up against now.
Yeah.
He should be setting up for a Geist for next turn.
But I mean, even though he might know what he's up against, what can he really do? All he has is Abrupt Decay and Golgari Charm for the most part, but it doesn't answer the actual Geist. He's going to have to throw blockers in the way. He's going to have to try to set up something where Nick thinks it's safe to attack with my Unflinching Courage Geist, but hey, I'm going to kill your Unflinching Courage, then I'm going to eat your Geist with 2 Arbor Elves.
And that's the game he has to set up, because he doesn't have any other big fat in his hand. He doesn't even have a Flint Hoof Boar to be able to take
if Anthony could
down.
Draw anything.
There's a Dome Ray. That's going to be able to find new answers.
Yeah.
However,
I don't think it's the best card in this matchup.
No, it certainly isn't. I would much rather have Thundermaw Hellkite. Just off the top, just as a 5/5 blocker in this situation.
I think I would rather have Ruthar than Domerade. I think Domerade doesn't really do anything against Van Hextooth. I could be wrong. You know,
well, it fights off the little guys. It fights off things like Voice and Avacyn's Pilgrims and things like that. Even, you know, stray Strangleroot Geists. It's not ideal, but I certainly don't want a 6/6 for 6 in my deck.
I mean, maybe if Anthony's going to be on the play for Game 3, if it goes to a Game 3, he might get an explosive draw with multiple Arbor Elves. And Domerade just, I feel it costs you a turn and it doesn't really give you much back. Sometimes it might give you nothing back the way the game might play out. Alright, so...
Yeah, it turns out the way that Anthony could have theoretically played this
I was about to say.
Was to not play the Domri and just pass.
With Abrupt Decay.
With Abrupt Decay up. But if you pass with 2 Elves and Abrupt Decay up, and 3 mana up, don't you, like, as Nick, don't you just not attack there?
I think he still attacks.
He's got 2 more Unflinching Courages and no more creatures. I think that Nick goes, I smell something fishy.
And just pass.
I don't know even what it is.
Okay.
Like, it could be Yeva, for all I know.
Yeah, sure.
So, I think that he just passes the turn.
Okay. But now it's super safe for him.
But now it's super safe for him to make this attack.
Yeah. Do you think Nick cares about the Domerade at all? Do you think he's going to send one of the guys? No, just go to the Dome?
That card is ignorable.
Okay.
Oh, so he still had Abrupt Decay up, which is nice, but he's not going to be able to trade with the Geist.
Right.
Oh, so the Angel did go after the Domri.
Yeah. Which I thought might have been the case.
Interesting. I don't think that I care about the Domri raid.
Okay.
It's just a way to draw cards. Like, if you don't care about Jace Beleren, you don't care about Domri raid.
Ooh, there is an overloaded Mizium Mortars.
Oh, well, I didn't see that
That's a nice
coming.
way for Anthony to pull
That's
out of this.
Pretty good. And now Nick is only left with an Arbor Elf and a pair of Unflinching Courage.
One of those cards is a Smiter.
Oh, it's a Smiter.
Yeah, it's a Smiter and Unflinching Courage.
I see.
Yeah. All right, so Anthony will draw. Looks like Anthony's flooding out a bit.
A little.
Yeah, there's a Thundermaw. That's going to do some work on Nick's life total.
Yeah, unfortunately for Anthony, Nick has another Unflinching Courage in his hand.
Yeah.
To be able to
Nick's
suit up
still
his
going to have to draw something here. Because Anthony does have, 7 power where he can kind of gang block the Lockstone Smiter, even with an Unflinching Courage. Looking for like an Ethereal Armor. Ooh.
Or a Geist.
Or a Geist, yeah. That was an insane draw. So now I think before anything, Nick just wants to go Smiter attack.
Yeah.
See what Anthony does. Most likely Anthony's going to take it. Don't give him out any more information. Ooh,
yeah, because he could get theoretically very blown out here because or no, it's a Blood Crypt. It's not an Overgrown Tomb, so he can't untap.
Sure. Yeah. You can only untap the Stomping Ground. But my thought process is you just play the Geist. You don't even do an Unflinching Courage there because you don't want to go Geist Unflinching Courage and then it just runs into a Thunderball.
Yeah.
You want to see what you draw next turn. Hey, did I draw an Ethereal Armor? Did I draw a Spectral Flight? Then I can decide what I want to do. But I guess Nick thinks I just want to gain life now. I want to play it safe. I don't love his line of play, to be honest, but we'll see what happens.
It did force Anthony to make a very awkward play of playing this Gorklan Rampager.
And not attacking.
If you're playing Gorklan Rampager as a creature, things aren't going according to plan.
Sure.
Anthony is flooding out a little bit. He has the mana to be able to cast Ulamog's Crusher. 8 mana is a ton of mana for the Jund aggro deck.
Exactly.
So he just wants to have as much power up on defense as he can.
Yeah, maybe Anthony's trying to, draw the game out, play as safe as possible, hoping to draw, say, another Mizium Mortars and overload it. There's an Invisible Stalker. And Nick just passes the turn.
Yep, which I think is correct.
Yeah, Anthony definitely drew a spell. I don't know what it is.
It is a Borderland Ranger.
It is one of the weaker spells.
It is, but it looks like the weakest card in every deck that it's in.
Yeah.
But it's so necessary.
Okay. That's definitely fair.
It smooths, especially for a Jund aggro deck where you want to have green mana on turn 1, black mana by turn 4,
red
double
mana
on turn 2, triple red by turn 6.
Yeah,
so
with mortars.
When you're that greedy on your mana requirements, you need something like Borderland Ranger to just tie the room together.
Yeah. Looks like Nick's drawing pretty well. He just drew a Voice of Resurgence. So I think here he just wants to get in for 1, drop the Voice.
Yeah, Anthony's, now he's in single digits. He's not at a healthy life total.
Yeah. And I think Nick just wants to sit on that Loxodon Smiter. It's a 6/6. He knows Anthony doesn't have many answers to it. So we'll see what happens here with his draw.
In case the folks at home are wondering, there is no Bonfire of the Damned for Anthony to be hitting here, although Mizzium Mortars off the top would do a decent impression.
Yeah, it would. We already saw one overload in Mizzium Mortars this game.
That's right.
Wow, another
Many voices.
That's pretty good. I feel next turn Nick could set up an attack, an all-out attack, because
yes.
You know, he's gonna have to probably double block the Loxodon Smiter. Even if his voices die, it doesn't matter. He's gonna get tokens. Also, the Geist is making an Angel. If Anthony doesn't develop anything this turn, I think Nick could go for an all-out attack next turn. Because if you look at it, Anthony just has a 1/1, a 1/1, a 2/2. He only really has 2 big guys out of the 5. There's another land.
Super flooded here. Looks like we're going to play another Gorklan Rampager,
maybe?
I think.
Maybe a Falcon Wrath would be nice?
Yep, Falcon Wrath Aristocrat.
That's a bit better here. I think attacking is a bit risky, though, for Anthony.
A little ambitious to attack here.
Yeah.
I don't think that he can afford... Well, maybe he can.
Yeah.
Let me look at the math here. He's got a 5/5 and a 4/4, and the 6/6 has trample, so the 6/6 is going to trade off with...
Yeah, I think Nick just needs to swing out with everything right here.
Yeah, at this point, I think Nick can't wait anymore.
Yeah, hopefully he sees this line of play. Because if he's going to lose his Loxodon Smiter, it's going to cost Anthony either the Hellkite or 2 other creatures. And the voices, if they die, fine. I don't care.
I don't think the voices are dying in this combat. I think that if he swung all out here, that the voices would stay alive. Anthony would end up at something like 3.
Ooh.
So he's going to take a much more conservative line here.
I don't think this is more dangerous, I think. I think you want to clear the board. You want to gain a life and clear the board. But we'll see if it pans out for Nick or not. You know, he'll look like a genius if he just top deck something like an Ethereal Armor this turn.
Right.
Or another Unflinching Courage.
Which there are many copies of in the deck, although it's just another land.
So I think, again, he has to make this attack. If he doesn't, he's risking a top deck Gorklan Rampager. He's risking losing to another Falcon Wrath Aristocrat.
Fortunately for Nick, Anthony also drew a land on his turn, so he has the same option to make the same play with Anthony at 1 less life.
Sure, you could do some math. Maybe you hold back the Pilgrim for some reason. You know, maybe it works out that way. But I like swinging all out.
So we're just going to swing with the Voice and the Invisible Stalker. The voice would create a token that would become a 6/6.
Yeah. So Anthony has 9 points in the air, 10 points in the air. So Anthony has 10 points in the air. Borderline Rager is a human.
Right.
So he can just sack it, make his a 5/2, attack with... Yeah, I think Nick really needed to swing out all out there. But, I mean, it might just work out. Anthony might just break off and draw another land.
Yep.
You know, it just... But Nick, I don't think Nick's playing to all his outs.
He's also keeping 2 cards in his hand to try and keep Anthony from going too aggressive here as he top decks Flint Hoof Boar.
Yeah. Flint Hoof Boar is not going to really do too much.
No, it's going to be another 3 toughness to stand back on defense if he really wants it. But now Anthony is going to force Nick's hand. Nick has to attack with everything next turn.
All right, let's see what Nick top decks. He's really looking for a creature enchantment.
Anthony's down to 6. It's basically 5 because of the Invisible Stalker.
Simic Charm.
That's going to do it. Yeah. Because Simic Charm is going to be able to pump whatever isn't blocked.
Yeah,
including the Invisible Stalker.
The other thing is that Anthony might think it's safe to just throw 1 creature in front of
the Loxodon Smiter,
bounce his creature, and all 6 points of trample damage will come through.
As you can see, there is the 3rd mode, return target creature to its owner's hand on Simic Charm. Yeah. The way that trample works is that if the creature is not there to be able to deal damage, you can trample over for all 6.
Simic Charm is a great card, and I'm kind of disappointed we haven't seen more from it.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the more powerful charms we've seen in the last year, of course, with Blue-White Delver, how powerful an Unsummon can be. We've seen in the last 3 months with Naya Blitz how powerful Giant Growth can be, and the Hexproof mode is just a surprise blowout out of nowhere for anything from Abrupt Decay to a targeted Mizzium Mortars to a Boros Reckoner or a Dome reactivation.
For sure.
Very powerful.
I think Simic Charm could even make its way into Legacy.
I agree. Yeah. To counter Wastelands and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Simic Charm is my new favorite card, I'll say.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, so Nick is still in the tank. He's thinking. And I think he's a bit worried. I think maybe he's a bit nervous. I don't think he might see the line of play that we see here, the all-out attack last turn, the all-out attack the previous turn.
Right.
To
I think
really
that
pressure.
Nick does not know what's in Anthony's deck. I think that's
another reason?
fairly
Yeah.
abundantly clear.
Okay.
Anthony could have Fog, for example.
Oh, wow. He's only attacking with voice, and the Invisible Stalker. So
Yeah, he
Nick
was
goes
way
from,
too conservative with
Nick
this
goes
Locks It
from
On Smiter.
almost certainly winning this game to now he just has to blow his Simic Charm to bounce a Thundermaw Hellpit. And he might still lose if Anthony top decks something. You know? Nick's getting very lucky that Anthony kind of bricked off with some of his draws when he had the game in his possession.
Yeah. So before damage, Anthony's going to sacrifice the Borderland Ranger, blocking one of the voices to put a +1/+1 counter on the Falconwrath Aristocrat.
Sure. There's a draw.
And it's a Gorklan Rampager.
Was it? It might have
Yes.
been a Burning Tree.
Was it?
Oh, no, it was
It's
a
a Rampager.
Wow.
So whichever one is going to get bounced here,
Yeah.
the other one is going to get +4/+4.
Yep. All right. And Anthony's just going to go for it. And I think Nick might watch this tape and realize, hey, I could have made a few different lines. And
Oh, no.
no. Yeah,
There
yeah,
it
it is.
is.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. And all right, Nick extends the
Anthony's
hand.
gonna win.
Yeah, maybe a bit nervous. 6-1, so close to top 8, but you really got to try to keep your cool.
Yeah, Nick
Don't
was,
let the pressure get to you.
Unfortunately, sometimes you just have to make your opponents have it.
Yeah.
Nick was not